the previous example, we were comparing static variables and instance variables. While we're still on the topic, this video I will try to explain also adding on to the code that was already created in the previous example, try to explain static methods. So just like static variables, static methods belong to the class. And the good thing with static methods, you can create them without even having to create any objects. So they don't depend on the creation of objects for them to run. So I will show you an example of what I'm saying shortly. But let's say we're going to create a static method that will calculate the average miles. Because so far we have the total miles and we have the individual miles per car. So what if we wanted to calculate the average miles? So we can do that. I think we'll definitely need to create a static variable for count. So let's make it an integer because we want to count the number of objects or the number of car objects that have been created. So we can call it count car. Okay, so we can initialize it to 0 like we did with the static total miles outside of the constructor. But now we will need to keep on counting the cars. And where do we do the count of this variable? So we will definitely need to get into the constructor to count every time a car is created. Why are we doing this plus plus inside the constructor, not outside? Because every time a new car is being created, I told you when this code runs, the constructor is the one that will be instantiate the object. So each time the car is created, it's initialized here. So it will count. Car 1, it will be 1. Car 2, it will be 2. Car 3, it will be 3. So we are expecting our count car variable to be 3 objects because it will count with each of these lines executing. So after we create that, let's go to the bottom here and create another method, but this time it's a static method. I think you were dealing with the static methods when you were at the lab. So yeah, public static, and we wanted to return the average miles, so we can call it average miles. And yeah, it's a utility method again. This purpose is just to do some work. So then we can return the total miles, and we divide it by this variable car count, which we know after execution it has to be 3. So how do we call this method here? So it's very easy to call this method. Actually, because we wanted to print something out, the return value, we can just call it within the print statement and call it average miles. So when you call a method within the print statement, you just call it like this. So you can see that I did not put car1 dot, like I did not use the objects to call this method. I just called it like this. Let's see so far what's gonna happen. So yeah, it calculated the average. So we can sorry about the code behind there. So we can do the printf so that we run it to the nearest to 2 decimal places. Yeah, let's see if that will work. So we can, you remember what the printf does? It basically formats our output so that we can be able to print it. So we don't use the plus for the printf, we use the comma. So let's see what will be printed out. So yeah, so it's 566.7. Now let's see something. I want to show something here. So what if, okay, just to show, to give strength to the definition of the difference between a static method and a, let's an instance method. Let's just freeze these objects like we never created them. We'll just comment out the code for these objects. Okay. Okay, so far so good, everything is fine. But let's try to call this method get miles. Let's just try to call it. What will happen? We have an error. Okay, we have an error. Okay, we still have an error because it complains that it's a non-static method. You cannot execute it without calling an object. But let's do the same for this one. You'll see the difference. I'm gonna paste it here. Average miles, it runs, there's no error. So that's the difference. Average miles does not need, it doesn't depend on the object, it can work on its own. So whenever sometimes you are given work that doesn't require you to create objects, but you still want to use methods, go ahead and use static methods. But when you are creating methods that are operating on the objects, you just don't need to make them static. So I hope this helps to explain the difference between the two. The other one, these two, get miles and drive, heavily depend on the object, and this one, the static one, you can work on it without depending on the object. Thank you.